Well, this year's annual meeting is focusing on the theme, Shared Norms for a New Reality. And you have to break it apart. First, understand that there is a new reality. There's a new economic reality where parts of the world are growing much faster than in the past, in the sense that we have emerging markets really driving the global recovery. And of course, there's parts of the world that historically have been the driver of growth that are now struggling in a period of austerity. That's mostly the West. So that's part of the new reality. There's also a new political reality. We live in an age of WikiLeaks, but also we live in an age of really complex global challenges where we need really new partnerships to deal with these global issues, particularly global risks. That's the new reality, and by extension, you need to have shared norms to deal with them. And by norms, we're talking about behavior. Really, how are countries going to behave in response to this new reality? A classic example is this current situation around the macroeconomic imbalance. Will the shared norm be about protectionism and competitive devaluation? I certainly hope not. Or would it be the shared norm that will emerge will be about greater macroeconomic coordination, particularly at the G20 level? So we really are going to look at the new reality, but more importantly focusing on really what are the behaviors, the shared norms that are really going to address the new reality. In terms of the critical issues for the annual meeting, I think first and foremost will be the global economy, in particular the notion of avoiding a jobless recovery. We're at a fragile period in the global recovery. One of the big challenges here is that we see the employment levels rise again. We're still not there, and I think it's something that's a challenge for both the industrialized and the emerging markets. In fact, this notion of a jobless recovery, I think, will be first and foremost. How do you avoid a jobless recovery? Second is that the recovery, as I mentioned, is quite fragile, so there are other shocks to the system, and we need to think about them and, in fact, mitigate against them. We're concerned about food, energy, security. We have the threat of possible geopolitical incidents around the world that could actually destabilize the system, but more importantly also force us to lose confidence in the future growth prospects. We have emerging new threats, for example, cybersecurity. We've seen that in manyfold instances around the world this past year. So we have to look at these global risks, I think, more holistically and systematically. So that will be a part of the agenda and certainly a critical part. But a third element that I think is really key is actually give support to the institutions that are in fact tasked with ensuring a robust global recovery and that are also very critical in dealing with these global risks. And that's, for example, the G20. It's a new informal gathering of these top economies, but it's an important one, and one of the things at Davos will be how can the rest of the stakeholders, the global stakeholders in society, help support this G20 agenda, given the importance of that, avoiding a jobless recovery, dealing with these global risks, and the key role that the G20 will play in both. So those will really be on top of the agenda in Davos. In terms of the annual meeting 2011, we're going to have, once again, great participation. In fact, we anticipate really the highest participation in terms of government leaders, heads of state and heads of government from around the world. Particular focus will be on leaders from both the G8 and the G20. We anticipate half the leadership of both groups to be represented at the highest level. And certainly we'll have over 200 ministers from not only from the G20, but the rest of the critical economies around the world as part of the discussion among the over 2,000 participants. Another significant group that will be in Davos, of course, is the community of experts and academics who really play a vital role, particularly given that most global issues are, in fact, complex, are, in fact, interdisciplinary. So the fact that we can bring together business leaders with the government leaders as well as these experts from different domains, it really allows us to have a real rich discussion and examination of these critical issues. And so we really do look forward to a record participation engagement from all the various groups, stakeholder groups from around the world, and it will be, I think, a fantastic 41st annual meeting.